This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson.
Yes, hello, and welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show. My name is Harry Wilkinson, and this is the show where we take a look at the days and weeks events, happenings in the world, happenings in politics, technology, science, everything that affects us, everything that is coming at us from what is an increasing amount of directions, whether it be via traditional media, maybe the television, maybe the radio, as you're driving to work or running errands, maybe through your friends on Facebook or other social media platforms, or your cell phone, or any other numerous ways that we have now of interacting and communicating. It can be overwhelming, especially in a world where we have endless cycles of what some like to call news, most of which is not particularly informative or helpful, but simply there to titillate and disturb and get attention and get ratings. So when we take a step back and we look at all of these things from a higher perspective, which is what this show is all about, we see, in a way, we see through it. We see through the machinations that we are creating, because we are creating them. Now there actually are several levels in the ways that we are creating. I mean, we obviously, just on the mundane level alone, we are able to create problems for ourselves just by foolish acts or not listening to one another or that kind of thing. But on a much higher level, the level in which the truth of ourselves is to be found, a metaphysical level, if you will. On that level, we're creating this game space, and I call it a game space because it really is what it is. A virtual reality game. We are, the truth of ourselves is far beyond these puny forms we take, these kind of weak machinations that we go through. But we do them, it's a way to experience and deepen our connection, really, to the truth of who and what we are, to rediscover it in a way. And to understand that, on that level of truth, of real truth, all of this is illusory in a way. And I hate to say that because I don't want, to be dismissive of it. It's nothing to be dismissive of. It's not a way where we are making light of it, but you do lighten it by making sure that you understand that there's much more going on than meets the eye. We're supposed to engage, we're supposed to interact with these illusions in the game space. That's what makes it real. And that's what helps us to rediscover ourselves. So I don't want to be dismissive, but I want to be aware. Let's just put it that way. The best analogy, I don't even know if it is the best analogy, but it's one that most people seem to resonate as I've talked about this over the years. It's, gameplay. When you're in the midst of a game, and you're very involved. And it seems like the only thing in the world that matters is what you're doing in that game, winning or losing. And if you lose, it's a tragedy. And you're very upset about it. But underneath, or behind, if you will, you do have an awareness that there's another day. That this is just a game. It's not the ultimate pinnacle of your existence. Except maybe if you're a professional ball player or something like that. But even then, that awareness is there. Another one that I resonate particularly to, just because I come from a background of movies and theater, is, as actors, you create a role. You step into that role. You do that role. You become that role. And when you are in the scene, whether it's a play or a movie, everything, the whole world is about that scene. That is the world. But at the same time as you're doing that, behind it all, you have that awareness. Even though you're not using it particularly, and in a way you're fooling yourself by believing that the scene that you're in is real, but you need to do that in order to have the experience and bring it forward and bring it to other people who will get something out of it. But beneath it, behind it, I will say, is the awareness that it's not real. It's not who you are. The scene isn't the truth. But to be too aware of that would spoil the scene, right? So, you see what I'm getting at. It's finding that balance where that awareness is still there. Now, if you're someone who doesn't believe that there's anything beyond what you're experiencing right now, well, then that's problematic. At least it would be for me. I think some people are comforted by that idea that this is all there is, and you just deal with it and you don't think about it anymore. And there can't be any kind of spiritual thing going on. There can't be anything like a God, because what God would do these horrible, horrible things in the world. And that makes it simple and it's very easy to deal with. I've said it before. Spirituality, and this is backed up by science, because there is a genetic code in human DNA. It's a gene called the VMAT2 gene that hardwires us for spiritual experiences of transcendence, if you will. Now, some people have a small amount of that gene, and others have a well-developed part of that gene. And my view on it is that spirituality is part of the human experience. We all have a sense of spirituality in the same way that we all have a sense of smell, or touch, or taste, or even eyesight. Now, with different people, obviously those senses may be differently attuned. If you have, if you're born or become blind, or you have poor eyesight, well, you still have that sense. It's just not able to be used effectively. And then the other senses are used to compensate. And I think the same thing is true with spirituality. We all have that sense, and what we do with it depends on, number one, how well developed that sense is. Some people seem to have a natural, well developed sense of spirituality, while others struggle with it. Some try to develop it, some find it intolerable and would rather not deal with it at all. And there are actually, I think, two ways in which people who are, maybe don't have a strong sense of spirituality, or do have a sense of spirituality but don't know what to do with it. I've found that there's two ways that people deal with that. One is by taking that and just giving it over to a traditional organized religion. And that can be very satisfying because you don't have to think about it anymore. The religion will tell you what it all means, what you're supposed to do, and how you're supposed to pray and what you're supposed to believe in. And then you don't have to think about it. The other way that people deal with it is by saying it doesn't exist. The atheist perspective. The materialist perspective. Again, that is really helpful and comforting to people. You don't have to think about it anymore. It just doesn't exist. It's a fairy tale. And people find varying and different things to support their particular approach to it. And it's all valid. It's all valid. Everybody has their way of dealing with it. So, when I talk to you about these things, and you may be experiencing them from varying perspectives, and that's fine. I can only put my perspective out there, and believe me, I have no interest in proselytizing or convincing anybody of the rightness of my point of view. I'm just expressing it and reiterating it, and I do it for people who want to listen, but I also do it for myself, to remind myself at this point in my life, this perspective, which I consider to be sort of a hard-won perspective over the years of different experiences. So there's no attempt to, really to change people's minds, but if it is something you're open to, if it's something that resonates to you, if it's something that, makes you feel differently about things, then by all means, please explore. People have asked me, listen to the show, and they wonder, why do I spend time talking about current events and news and politics and that kind of thing on a show that's supposed to be about wellness and spirituality? And my response to that is that this is about wellness, because part of having a sense of well-being is being able to deal with this kind of information, with the news of the day, in a way that doesn't want to make you run screaming out of the room, right? And having a perspective that allows you to feel empowered, allows you to understand that these things aren't happening to you, and that gives you a sense of, in a way, control over them, by understanding the truth of what they are, and then taking the energy from that. And that's part of the meditation that we talked about, a lot on this show, is taking that energy. And it in a way, it's hard to explain in words, but it does lift you in a way to help you see from a higher perspective. It's the best phrase I can think of. All right, so we are going to talk about wellness. We're going to talk about fall wellness, since we are now we've just passed the autumn equinox. That's when day and night are equal amounts of time, at least here on in the United States. And of course, autumn is a time when certain health issues start to crop up, particularly allergies. So we're going to talk about allergies. We've been talking about how we want to